Hey friends, welcome to Seed Starting Saturday. It is your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm really glad that you're here and have some pretty fun stuff for us to get started on this morning. We're going to do a little talking about some of the chores that I'm actually doing on the farm this time of the year, what I've been doing this morning, and some other things. And if you're new here, friends, welcome aboard. As you may or may not know, I'm with the Gardener's Workshop. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and we are all about helping other folks learn how to grow or expand upon grow and cut flowers. And we do it here in the middle of the city in southeastern Virginia. My career started next year in 2023, I'll be able to say 25 years, y'all. 24 years ago, I started growing cut flowers as a passion and hobby and quickly built it into a business. And here we are 25 years later, sharing what we do and how we do it and just helping to empower other people. And that's really what our mission and our passion is all about. And so if you haven't ever visited our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, it has got all kinds of opportunities over there. So we have our blogs, our 2 podcasts. There's resources with all kinds of how-to videos, our online garden shop where we only sell the same tools and seeds and supplies that I actually use here on the farm and you hear me mention from time to time. Plus, we have an incredible library of online courses taught by other people like me that are successful cut flower farmers, and they're very passionate teachers. And why are cut flower farmers such great teachers to learn how to garden? And let me tell you why that is. This is what I learned when I came into this industry 25 years ago. Unlike any other industry in the horticulture world, flower farmers, pretty much like vegetable growers, kind of fall into this too. Sorry, y'all. I've been out working all morning and I've got a really runny nose. We go from the beginning to the end of a life cycle of plants, unlike people that perhaps say grow plugs or grow trees or do a lot of other things. And a lot of other people are very specialized in certain steps. Flower farmers have to have the umbrella to do a little bit of everything. We have to go from starting seed, growing the plant up to get a good end result and harvesting it and then turning the beds. So that kind of makes us great teachers. And so you can find out more about our instructors over at thegardenersworkshop.com because we have some awesome instructors. So today, I'm going to kind of be wrapping up our seed starting Saturdays. We're coming in now. It totally depends on where you live, what your conditions are like. Here in my zone 7B/8A, I literally live right on the hardiness zone line. So that's referring to my winter hardiness. We could actually plant transplants here year round because our ground never truly freezes hard, right? If you had a prepared bed, we do plant in the middle of winter, like in January and February. But we tend to take our foot off the pedal in the second half of November and going in December, not because there's not a ton of things to do on the farm, because there actually are. But I deliberately try to not continue seed starting during about a 6-week period, unless it's an emergency. What's an emergency for a flower farmer? If we had a crop failure, or if you discovered that, holy cow, nobody started the rocket snaps, which are a big part of our production, or something like that you just have to do, right? So we try to remove that one piece of the pie for what goes on here on the farm. And of course, it's the holiday season. Everybody tends to have lots of social obligations and all that kind of stuff and family obligations. So we're going to do that for seed starting Saturday. So we're going to pause after today. I'll be back after the first of the year because we get busy starting seeds like right out of the gate. New Year's happens and then we're off and running with starting all of our very early spring planting of cool flowers that are going to be planted 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost, right? So that's kind of what's going to happen. So we'll be back, and I'm pretty sure you're going to see some videos from us on some specific tasks, but we just won't be meeting here every Saturday morning, whether you're watching me on YouTube or Facebook. You can always find me every Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern time on Instagram doing a 30-minute kind of like it's a Q&A. It's Ask a Flower Farmer, and you can bring any of your questions there. And then, of course, we do our live shopping show on Fridays inside the Gardener's Workshop live shop app. So let's talk about what's sitting in front of me first. And I'm sorry, y'all, about my nose. I've blown my nose about 10 times before I got on here. Let me talk about what I have sitting here in front of me so we can move them out of the way. So first off, I want to say that we are hoping, fingers crossed, that my Cool Flower book will be back in stock everywhere, maybe by the end of November. This is one of those supply chain things. Y'all think that people, and I'm sure there's people taking advantage of the supply chain problems, but this is truly one of them. There was a paper shortage. The printer that we normally, not me, the publisher used, was like booked out way. So he went to another printer, but it still took a long time. Anyway, Cool Flowers is coming. So if you need a book, please get on the wait list. I know that our first order we're expecting is already, I think, going to be consumed by our wait list, but that's about the best way you can actually do that. So the bottom line is we can, or would, and so can you, continue to start transplants. I'm not talking about direct seeding. Direct seeding is not, you need to have a little bit of heat out in the garden, warm weather to actually do that off key, right? But transplants, if you live, I'm just going to gander here. If you live in zone 7, 8, or 9, we can tend to push the envelope a little bit more than anybody else can because our ground oftentimes does not really freeze, right? That means you can't plant it. The key is you have to have your ground prepared so you can, let's just say you're thinking, holy cow, you mean I could maybe plant some more Sweet William? Well, you can if you have the bed prepared, because the problem that most of us face is once fall conditions come on, and your soil never really dries out enough to ever be worked again. That's why the rule of thumb is prepare a lot of space for your fall planting, as well as what you may need to make up during the fall and early winter, and then your very early spring planting. So we are still going at it, is what I'm saying. So I'm going to show you. So this is feverfew. This is Vegmo Sunny Ball, and that's the yellow one. I think it's the softer yellow one. And these guys are still coming along. This is a color got mixed over, y'all. When you start so many seeds as we do, it's real easy to actually not get it written on the calendar. So these guys will go into the garden hopefully next week, because Bobo will be off the whole week of Thanksgiving. So we're hoping that not all of these, but most of these will actually get in the ground. And here's another Sweet William. I mean, did a flower farmer ever have enough Sweet William? It's a great garden plant, but this is Amazon, and that is one of our staple flowers for bouquets as well as commercial customers. And so these guys are happy to go into a cold ground. If the weather, let's just say, because we're still having here, and I'm going to talk in a minute about, I'm so glad that I gambled on planting cover crop, because we are still having warm conditions here. So as long as we're going to put these guys in the ground, they have plenty of time to get established the way our fall's going now. But just in case, let's say you've got a prepared spot, you're already pretty where you are, and you're wondering if you can plant, if your ground's not frozen and you have hoops and row covers, my goodness, yes, because planting those transplants and then giving them that little bit of protection that'll concentrate the heat, plus block the wind, it'll give the root establishment process all that it needs to really get established. And Sweet William are some of the best performers. I think back to several years ago, the best crop of Sweet William I ever grew was planted in January, not but super cold soil. They were the tiniest little transplants. They had been missed, that particular color. It was Amazon Rose Magic, I think. And we started it late and it just sat here. Everybody for the farm had been gone home for the winter, right? It was just me by myself. And finally, I was taking care of this one 240 count tray of dianthus. And every morning when I watered it, I thought, you know what? You just really aren't growing very much. You're just kind of sitting here stalemate, like pouting, basically. I thought, you know what? I'm just out in the garden. I'll hoop and cover them. And you know what? Then you're on your own. I was tired of taking care of them. I want you to know that those were some of the best Sweet William. They had big, strong stems and big heads, and it had several of them. So it was a great experiment. I can't tell you exactly what part of that process caused that to happen, but don't be afraid. So this is the Sweet William, and let's get rid of this. And then this is a test crop that I'm doing. And you can see it was just started on, what is today, the 12th? This was started on the 3rd. So these are 9 days old. And I'll tell you what they are once the experiment is successful. But I know it's a cool flower. But is it a cool flower that can be fall planted here where I am? That's the big question, right? So I don't want you to think just because you're not seeing me here on Saturday mornings that there aren't seeds potentially that could be started in your area. You have to know when you're talking about starting winter hardy, cool hardy, I'm not sure what is going on with my internet. It's kind of popping in and out. I have a phone here. Stand by, y'all. Are y'all still there? I have got to put a piece of tape. I plugged my laptop into a plug that has failed and doesn't work and didn't even pay attention to it. So sorry about that. My laptop was screaming at me to do it and I wasn't listening. So I don't want you to think that you can't be starting seeds. So the bottom line recipe is this. You have to know your winter hardiness zone. If you don't have a book because they're out of stock right now, and we've got fingers crossed about, if you read up, there's a way to get on the wait list here that Jesse has posted in the comments. You can go to, if you need to know your wilderness zone, you can go to my website, thegardenersworkshop.com, go to the store, go in that season category. I am just not sure. It's still not. It is charging. I'm having like a major failure here today. But you can go to that category on our store, and for every flower that's in that category, it tells you in the on the product page, the winter hardiness that we know it's hardies at 2, and all the growing information that you will that you need to do that. So many of us can actually what's called winter planting. You can continue to plant those transplants, but I'm telling you, the real piece of the cake that you got to have is the fact that you have to prepare the ground in fall before your soil gets wet. There's nothing worse than preparing wet soil. Once you disturb and start messing around with wet soil and make chunks, dirt clogs, you never get over that. I mean, it takes years, and even if you can get over that. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what I was doing this morning. First off, as I was taking Tucker for a walk around the farm, we're looking at all the direct seeded stuff is either this tall or this tall, um, and I gambled on some cover crop stuff. First off, what came to my mind, I actually stopped and sent this to myself when I was walking around. Farming is a gamble. I mean, if you're a gardener or a farmer, then you know that there's always a chance that some stuff's going to happen. So I was a little late. I had planted some cover crop here on the farm. Typically, I pretty much stick with crimson clover is our go-to over winter cover crop. And if you live in an area where you don't drop below -10 degrees in the winter, you can plant crimson clover in fall to winter over. You could plant it if it's already cold where you are, but the germination is very, very spotty and very slow. And that undermines the very reason that you plant cover crop, which is to help suppress weeds and protect your soil. If you plant your cover crop at the not optimal time, like let's just say you're in zone 6 and it's already 30 degrees outside, and you're listening to this and saying, gosh, she said if I don't go below -10, I can plant that. Well, you can plant it, but guess what? It is going to take it like 30 days or more, even if it will germinate at all these really cold temperatures you're having. But guess what does germinate during that time? All the weed seeds that are native plants that perform beautifully in your region, right? So the weeds get ahead of the cover crop. I can't tell you how often I find that has happened to me on many occasions, and I think that happens to a lot of people, that the weed pressure overtakes the cover crop, and it was all about the timing. So you may not want to do it this year. It may be too late, but I planted mine. You plant it just like a cool flower, 6 to 8 weeks before your first expected frost, so it can sprout and grow into a little plant about that tall. And that's that canopy. It totally covers your soil. Not only do the wildlife love it, I mean, the birds and frogs, everybody else is hunkered down out there, really love it, but it keeps your soil from the weed seeds from getting the light that they need, because we fight a lot of winter weeds here. We have chickweed and henbit, which are really bad guys. But anyway, I gambled and I planted mine about 3 weeks, I think probably later than I normally would. And because we're having this extended fall, which is becoming the norm here for us, we thought this year was going to be different, but it made an about turn, and here we are at 70 degrees yesterday and today. And we had rain. So everything's growing like crazy. So, I want to just say, I don't mind taking educated gambles, meaning that something has a really good chance of working. It's like going out and direct seeding, let's say larkspur, when it's already 25 degrees outside. It won't kill the seeds, but it's never going to germinate for the same reason I just told you the clover wouldn't germinate. And so it is going to sit there all winter, and it just is not going to do anything. So you have to stack the odds for what you're talking about doing, but to go for it. And then something that's always in my mind, always, is, will I be able to duplicate this? And I mean, that's the only thing that's important to me as a flower farmer. As a home gardener, that may not even come on your radar. You could care less. You just want to have something pretty in your garden now, this year, or this season. But as a flower farmer, it's like, all right, to do something heroic oftentimes is not even something I consider, because can that actually be duplicated? Because then that would be maybe potentially a waste of time, energy, and labor. Potentially. That's all I'm saying. So, and I'll circle back to the questions here in just a few minutes. So this morning I'm trying to get ready for a photo shoot the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And part of that photo shoot will be, in our direct seeded garden. So I needed to tighten up I have a little problem with direct seeding, y'all, which I'm about to tell you. I went from an under sower to an over sower, and I'll tell you what that means. Anyway, I was walking the farm, and when I came to the Bells of Ireland bed, which looks totally awesome, y'all. Oh my gosh, I have like 25 feet of 3 rows in a 30-inch wide bed of bells, and they're about this tall. And I mean, I just love Bells of Ireland immature leaves. They kind of look like an alligator back. They're kind of lumpy, and I just love the smell. They start having that fragrance that Bells of Ireland has, and anyway, I ended up, Tucker was tuckered out. He had been chasing the ball a little bit, and he was overlaying. He went and laid down. I stopped for a minute to kind of look at the bells. He went and laid down in the shade, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to work on this bed right now. And let me tell you what I worked on. Because if you have read my books or heard me talk, I typically, and I still do, don't thin my direct seeded flowers until very early spring, which for me is like late February, early March, before they really get up and get going, unless I've oversowed. And so let me just clarify all of this for you. So first off, what I did this morning was not a final thinning. I oversow so much that what that means is there are so many seeds, it's like my fingers. There were spots in the row of seedlings that there are so many seedlings, they're that close together. They're only about this tall, right? They're already starting to fight and argue over who's getting the light and the space. So everybody's stretching just a little bit, and that's not what you want to happen. So I did what I call inline thinning, and inline thinning is just going along, and I'm not removing, because Bells of Ireland, typically you want one about every 6 inches. Although my goal when I'm sowing seeds is to put a seed about every inch or so that there's enough of them that I can choose when I'm thinning the best one to have one about every 6 inches. Well, because of projects and photography and videoing and all that stuff, I tend to oversow. So there is some extra thick spots in my direct seeding. And that's what I corrected this morning. Because let me tell you something, friends. Thinning, I think, is the biggest challenge for most people. If you are a person that has trouble making decisions, this is an excellent exercise for you. So let me just back up a minute. I went from being an undersower to an oversower. When I first started flower farming, I was barely a gardener. I knew nothing about sowing seeds. Of course, we barely had the internet back then, right? So, I read the seed packet and it said, a plant every 6 to 9 inches or whatever. And that's what I was planting, a seed every 6 inches. Well, and I just had dismal results. There would be holes in my bed. And, I was even a smaller space farmer back then than I am now. Now I have a 2 3/4 acres. Back then I only had 1 1/4 acres. That's with my home and all my buildings on it too. So I was really tight on space. I did not want any holes. So, for probably 3 or 4 years, I was, sowing the classic fall cool flowers. I was planting poppies, larkspur, probably nigella, and I'm not sure what else, agrostemma, some more common ones that everybody knew about back then, right? Well, I was conserving seeds. I didn't want to waste them. I didn't want to spend the money to buy extra seeds, the same old story, right? And so I was planting like I thought I would need to get a plant. I was planting the seeds like you're supposed to end up with the plants, but that's not how it works, friends. Stuff happens to seeds. First off, our friends, the ants, who are some of the best garden workers we can have, move a lot of seeds. And along with everything else that they move around that you don't want in your garden. So I was not planting enough seed. And then I went to Bob Woolham's farm for an ASCFG, that's an Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers conference, or it was like a mid-Atlantic meeting or something. It was a real casual. I would guess there was probably like 25 or 30 growers there. And I think it was in fall. It was cold. We had a fire. So it was cold. His larkspur was, like this tall, and it was thick. And it was worth me driving to his farm just for this. I said, "Why is your larkspur so thick?" And he said, "That's how you have to sow thickly to be able to have a good stand to thin them back to what you need them to be once they go over winter." Changed my life, friends. The other thing I learned from him. So I typically farm in 30-inch wide beds. It used to be 36. Now it's 30. As you get older and reaching is more of a challenge with your back if you have to stretch too far, which doesn't sound like much if you have a 10-foot long bed. But if you have a 100-foot long bed times 20 beds, it makes a big difference. So I also noticed, so in my 30-inch bed, typically all of my annuals are 4 rows of transplants. However, when I direct sow, I only put 3 rows, and it's because of what Bob taught me that day. He said he learned it did not pay to try to squeeze an extra row in because you have to hoe. And if you do not own a hoe, one of our stand-up garden hoes, razor hoe, both of them or at least one of them, it's no wonder you don't want to direct seed, because when you sow 3 rows to your bed, which leaves ample room between the rows where the seeds are, you can quickly and efficiently, in 5 minutes or less in a 100-foot bed, run your stand-up hoe through it to prevent weed seeds from being born, to make spring an absolute delight in your direct seeded bed. And so Bob taught me that day, you have to oversow in the row, in the line of seeds. And then he puts one less row in a bed so that he can efficiently prevent weeds. And then those inline seeds. Now, when I'm talking about sowing a line of seeds, what my goal is after listening to Bob is to get a seed about every inch of your bed. And yes, I do this by hand. No, I have not found any planter that's reasonable. I haven't found any type of planter that works for the majority of the seeds. I don't direct seed, but about a handful of seeds. And so I'm quick and efficient at it. But I'm not quite as efficient as I should be. And it's all because I'm always in a hurry. So I tend to oversow. So I went from being somebody that was not sowing enough seeds to be successful to now someone that sees the great success in sowing, oversowing. So you have a lot of seedlings to choose from, to going a little too far with that. Plus, this year, I was actually direct sowing my seeds when the rain started. So I was like pedal to the metal. So I oversowed my bells of Ireland. So this morning I went through and did that inline plant thinning. I didn't thin the inline down to one plant every 6 inches. My goal was to leave a plant every inch or two. And then they'll go through winter, and whoever is the mightiest will actually be the one that gets to stay in the garden to see March, April, and May. So I just want to say that and I will tell you that I have a firsthand experience a couple years ago of not doing what I did this morning now. And my bells of Ireland, from a distance, they look beautiful. There was this little canopy of all these little bells of Ireland. But when you peeked into that canopy, you could see that there was way too many seedlings in that space. And they went through winter like that. And then the next spring, they were not nearly as happy as they should have been after I removed all their neighbors. And there they were, like a skyscraper with a big swollen head, and they couldn't, you know what I mean? So timely chores really, really help. So if you are one of my students, or you've been following me long and you are an oversower, that's just something you want to check. I am not saying you're doing your final thinning. I am just saying, if you have the seedlings that are all ganged up together, you need to thin those out so those babies can really get their own elbow space. Because here where I am, we have such unpredictable winters now of warm spouts. Those bells can be growing in January if we have a run of 70-degree wet weather. So I don't want them to be crowded and struggling to do that. So what else did I want to tell you? So the moral to the story is, It's probably too late for you to do it this year if you're in the United States and, you're not in, zone 9 maybe or 8. It's too late for you to direct sow. This is something that you should write down. You need to have a seed sowing book, little notebook, something, about this size. And each variety that you grow should have its own page. You're not journaling, y'all. You're just writing down those pieces of information you need to know. And you need to have a direct seeded page. And one of those things is buy 5 times the seed you think you need for direct seeding for the space you want, because you need to pull out 80% of those. But that's the way it works. That's the way it is. Seed is by far the least expensive piece of this entire puzzle. How much more value, if you're a flower farmer, you need to think about what is the crop, how much in value does it have for me, and then do the math. So you need to, obviously, if you are a flower farmer, you should have a business license, which means you're buying commercial seeds, which means wholesale. And to do the math, you should have more seed than you need. You should have leftovers. You should never run out of seed. So that's kind of the moral to my story today. And I'm getting ready to do a podcast when I get off of here. And that's a great topic. And it'll be coming out Tuesday because I'm a little behind, which is, it's that time of year. I have a lot of chores to do here on the farm and the garden. It's just me and Bobo here on the farm. And this time of the year, a lot of people aren't, Bobo's not even here a lot of the time now. So I relish sinking my hands. I was going to say I did wash my hands. My fingernails were full of dirt. And I'm like a lot of you, I'm doing it on Saturdays because of my obligations for all the other things I have to do for our business. So, all right, let's take a look at the questions and see what we have here. And good morning to everyone. So I want to say again, if you've just joined us, this is kind of our wrap up for the Seed Starting Saturday for 2022. We'll be back in January of 2023 with a live event of some kind. I'm not sure what it'll be, if it's going to be Seed Starting Saturday, but we'll be back online starting lots of seed starting and a lot of stuff going on. So you'll still be able to find me each week live over on Ask a Flower Farmer, which appears live in Instagram, but it also gets posted here on YouTube. Of course, our podcast, Seed Talk and Field and Garden, will still be coming out. And then we have our live shopping shows normally that happens on Fridays, that you can also catch up with me live. So I'm not abandoning you. We're just pausing it for the holidays as we all get busy. So I want everybody to know that. And so Wanda, our friend, our Alaskan peony grower, says, hello, friends from Fox Hollow Peonies in Alaska. I'm attending the Alaskan Farmers Conference this weekend. Always love to learn more and get more tools in my toolbox. You know what, Wanda, what a great idea. And in fact, that's kind of what my podcast is about today. That'll be coming out Tuesday. Is it never, ever ends. It doesn't matter how successful you think you are or not. You're always expanding your horizons. And Wanda is a great example of that. Wanda has, if you'll notice her sunflower emoji, she has taken all of our online courses and she continues her education up and beyond, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're going to learn when you attend something. So that is just really, really great. And here's Barbara, and she's got 5 sunflowers. Lots of students here this morning. Welcome. Good morning from Living Treasure Flower Farming in Iowa. Wow. I had knee replacement surgery yesterday and doing great. Oh, Laura, good for you, and keep up the good work. You know that we've had a lot of knee replacements in our family and my extended family, and good for you. It's a good time of the year. Just keep moving that thing and you'll be back on the mend. Best to you. And here's Margie when she's got 4. And here we are saying welcome to everybody. And thank you for that, Jesse. And let's see. Whoop. And there's Fran saying good morning. And so Laura says, good morning. Are those flowers behind you dried? Yes. And thank you for reminding me of that. I hadn't even looked at my own notes. So I call this my winter wall of wonder. These are the leftovers on our farm. This is stuff that would have been composted that I learned to just hang and dry from Ellen Frost, our instructor that does growing your business with local flower sourcing. And she taught me about that. And if you want to learn what's in there, yesterday on my live show inside our app, if you don't have our phone app, friends, you have got to go get it. I'm not sure why you don't have it. Just go to your phone app store and search Gardener's Workshop Live Shop. I'm sure Jesse will probably post it in the feed now. Download the app and you can go watch the replay. I go through the wall and the seeds come up so that you can actually put them in your cart and purchase them. There's always special offers. The special offers are always good from Friday when the show is live till Sunday morning, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And there are some awesome, there's actually a drying seed collection of cool flowers that we offered. And friends, there are some deep discounts. And this was an extra special week because we gave an additional special because of Veterans Day yesterday. So if you don't have our app, you want to jump in there. And when you go in, there's a tab before you hit the video. There's a tab that says features for 11/11. Sorry, I had to look at the date for yesterday's date. And that'll show you right there what the special offers were. You can see them, or you can go in and watch the video. And I take you through the entire wall. And this was the most pleasant surprise of my season this year. We've got big plans for next year of what we're going to do with all that stuff. So anyway, that'll give you. So thank you very much, Laura, for asking me that question, because I had actually forgotten about that. So Jesse has posted, if you want to get on the wait list for my book, Cool Flowers. So what that means is when our order comes in, the wait list, the minute it gets put in stock, the wait list automatically just gets notified. You'll get an email that says, hey, it's in stock and you better buy it fast, because we know that the wait list is like 3 or 4 times what our book order is. And we have another order already in. They're actually air sending our original order, then the rest of it's coming by slower method and by container. And anyway, so do that and get on the wait list. All right, so Lori has a question. I'm in zone 5B, southeastern Iowa, and my Craspedia has sent up new growth. We are now getting snow. I'm excited to see what these cool hardy annuals will do next spring. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, and we would love to hear it. So here's the good thing about snow. Snow, if you live in an area that gets decent snow, meaning kind of steady snow cover all winter, that is the best thing to happen to cool flowers, because that's like an insulation blanket. That's like a heavy duty row cover, right? It's places like where I am, where we get cold, blistering wind and low temperatures and wind with no snow. So our plants just get beat all winter, getting whipped around. So we would love to hear if your Billy Balls survives. And if it does, oh my gosh, they're going to probably be 36 inches tall and awesome next spring. So the best of luck with that. And thank you for letting us know. All right. So Suzanne says, when will your Cool Flowers hardcover book be available to buy? So Suzanne, I hope you're still here. If you jump on that wait list that we just displayed, it's in the comments. That will get you on. You'll be the first to know when it becomes available. All right. Planning question. When planning out your succession planting schedule, how do you decide how much time to allow for harvesting of the first crop before you schedule the planting of the next crop? That is a great question. And here's the answer, the simplest. And there is nothing that needs to be simplified more than succession planting, because it will make your head explode, right? I break my garden up into 3 or 4 blocks. Let's just say 4 blocks. So if I say I have 40 beds, I break up them into 10 bed blocks. Cool flowers, fall planted, and very early spring get 1 set of 10. So that means, like in a normal world, like 8 of those beds would have been planted this fall. 2 of those beds are prepared, ready, and waiting. They go through winter empty, and they will be planted with very early spring. So there's my cool flowers, right? The second set of 10 beds is where the first spring planting of warm season tender annuals go. That's what those are, the zinnias and coxcomb and all that stuff, your very first ones that you can plant. The second set or the third set of 10, group of 10 is where my second succession goes. And then there's the fourth block. So, and even if you were to say just 3 sets of 10, so the first one is your cool flower beds. The second one is your first spring planting. Then your third set is that second succession. By the time you plant this third session, many of your cool flowers, if you learn how your cool flowers bloom and perform for you and plant all the one and dones, and that totally depends on where you live. My one and dones are not the same for people that live in the north. So I'm not going to tell you what they are for me, because that may not be true for you and for people further south of me. So by the time I got my second set of beds planted with that second succession of warm season tender annuals, my cool flowers start getting pulled out, and so forth and so on. And part of my warm season succession plantings are my sunflowers. My weekly sunflowers are in there. And so one of those beds is typically ready to be done away with and replanted. So then it becomes this whole pulling and pulling. I never counted on, you can't speculate. I never was. First off, when you start farming, there are so many things grabbing your attention. You just need to, in my opinion, have 3 areas designated. And then after you get those things in the ground, you're constantly pushing and pulling, starting seeds, pulling crops, and planting crops. But for the third and the fourth succession of warm season, if you're even doing that, they're not necessarily going in a block together. You're plugging them into beds as those beds become available. Hope that hasn't complicated it even more for you, but that's the bottom line. Is it starts out very organized with the blocks. Those are the first cool flowers, first warm season, second warm season, and then it's a matter of, as soon as stuff is done, I'll tell you where most people fail at succession planting is they don't pull crops soon enough. I mean, as soon as a bed starts not filling up the bucket, if you have to stand there and look for a good flower, or the weeds get ahead of you, or there's a pest, ditch that bed, pull it out and have something ready to go in. People are slow to do that. And that's the biggest problem. That is the really biggest problem. 2 days ago, it was in the 70s in Indiana, Zone 6A. Today, we have at least 3 inches of snow. I mean, this is a story of our life now, isn't it? My sweet William and snaps are still under the grow lights. Only 1 or 2 sets of true leaves. I prepped my beds for them, great, but didn't cover. Should I knock the snow off and cover? What you're asking is how, I think you'll be able to plant those things once they get big enough, since you have prepared beds. And of course, you know that if you do use hoops and row covers immediately after planting, trying to give them a little extra TLC to get them going, if more snow comes, you always take your covers down. The snow is going to protect them. But when there's no snow on them, you want to concentrate the sunshine and the heat. So I think your question is, but didn't cover. I think what you're asking is a way to be able to reveal the bed if you get more snow. And what we talked about the other day that I do sometimes is I actually cover beds that are prepared with a silage tarp once snow gets on them to help melt the snow on the bed. It seems to work if you have really sunny conditions. So you could do that. But yes, I think you need to, if you didn't set your bed up to be able to reveal the bed, to be able to be planted in, then I would definitely do something. All right, question. Where are you located in your zone? I'm in Johnson City, Tennessee, Zone 7A. I am in southeastern Virginia, 7B/8A. I'm like right between Williamsburg, Virginia, and Virginia Beach. So I'm near the coast. I'm in Hurricane Alley, and we're right on the line where 7B meets 8A. I used to be 7B, but 8A has crept in over the years. And Kathy says she's in Jonesboro, I guess that's in Tennessee. So, Fran, what seeds do you suggest over sowing? Any time I direct seed flowers in my garden, which is only in the fall, I do not direct seed at all in spring and summer. We 100% plant transplants. And any direct seeded flower in the fall, which for me is, I'll try to remember what they are: bachelor buttons, saponaria, agrostemma, giant poppy pods, Iceland poppies, bells of Ireland, nigella, dill, bupleurum, larkspur, Chinese forget-me-nots. And you can listen to the replay of this and get those all down, and you can find all those seeds on our website. So those are the ones that I find that just are easier to germinate and get up and growing direct seeded. I would be starting them indoors for easier seed starting and less labor if I could, but they really prefer, and also Orlea. That's right, Orlea, which is white lace flower. What else did I forget? I used to, in Cool Flowers, it actually says that I start Orlea inside, which was true, but about 3-4 years ago, I direct seeded it 1 year to experiment, and it was so much easier, y'all. What you have to pay attention to is whether the seed gets covered with soil or not. Cool Flowers or my seed packets or my website tell you all that information. So I would oversow all of that and then thin them. And what I was going to say earlier is that people are afraid to thin. I've had people work for me back when we had 40, 120-foot beds of just Cool Flowers every fall and very early spring. We'd have 420-foot beds of larkspur for our commercial customers. They would cry thinning to start with. But let me tell you something. You want to cure yourself of getting over not wanting to thin and doing it properly? Be there by yourself with 100-foot bed that has got a ton of larkspur that you got to pull out, and a ton just meaning you have to go along and do that in-row thinning and get them down to 6 inches apart in very early spring. You quickly get vicious about it. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're a person that has trouble making a decision, oh my gosh, you need to sow some seeds and then thin them, because deciding which one to leave can be a real challenge. But when you have a ton to do, you quickly learn, just make a decision and move on, people. It's not life or death, and you have a whole bunch more there. If you pull the wrong one, it's okay. I pulled the wrong one twice this morning. I pulled the entire group instead of leaving, instead of just pulling the group that was around one that was being outcrowded. So that's what I oversow. But this, of course, is just the way that I do it, which is not necessarily the right way. It's just the way that I've done it. And here's the other thing, folks. You have to remember that I'm a commercial cut flower grower. I am always looking to do things the quickest way possible. So it's about the bottom line, and time is money. There is no truer way to figure that out than to go into business. That time is literally money. And anytime you waste your time, it's affecting something else. Okay. Holly, first time trying Bio 360. Can you pull out plants and replant in holes and reuse it? Or how does that work? That doesn't work very well. The biodegradable film, Bio 360, which I absolutely adore. This year, we did not do our Cool Flowers in Bio 360 because of circumstances of weather and not being able to work the soil when we needed to build the beds. And I'm already so sorry we didn't do it. They're mulched in permanent beds, and we're constantly pulling little weeds out. If we don't, we can't stay ahead, which is not a problem with Bio 360. Anyway, sorry, rabbit hole. So Bio360, the biodegradable film, looks just like plastic, but it's made out of a corn byproduct. You can find it over at thegardenersworkshop.com, and I've used it for about 10 years and totally attribute my great success to Bio360. But there's a learning curve to learn how to use it. It doesn't last, I mean, it's only supposed to last 6 to 9 months. So you would never, I mean, I have never planted a crop in film that was newly put down and then ended that crop. First off, it's very difficult to do. I mean, you would just have to cut the crop off at ground level and then try to plant your plant in that same hole. But at that point, it's naturally starting to break down. So it's very fragile. It doesn't necessarily rip up, but when you start messing with it, it will. So no, you put Bio360 down at each flip of your bed, and then it can be turned into your soil. That's what we do. I mean, we take our flower netting off, we bush hog a bed, we pull the irrigation up. It pops easily up through the film. Remove the irrigation, and then we till the entire bed. The debris, the Bio360, put down our compost and fertilizer or whatever we're doing to the bed, prepare it, and rebuild the bed again. When we were doing all that by hand, obviously, we weren't able to turn beds at the rate that we do now. You can also mulch on top of Bio360. So that's how we used it in our permanent beds. So we made our beds the first time and did it with Bio360. Then we cut those crops off, like I just mentioned, at ground level, left the Bio360 in place, mulched the bed, whether we mulch sometimes in compost, sometimes with bark, whatever we had. And then you would just plant through that again, but you can't rely on Bio360 to give you weed suppression action more than its designated time frame of 6 to 9 months. So hope that helps. Hello, Northern California. And we have Nebraska. Julie, hi, Julie. Jeffrey, we will miss spending Saturday mornings with you, enjoying the holidays with friends and family. Yeah, it'll be, I really do enjoy this too, but we've got a lot of farm things that need to be done. Like I should still be out there thinning, and we have 500-foot beds of direct seeded stuff. And I'm the only one that does the thinning and tending to those. I mean, that's kind of my job. And Saturdays is when I do that. So, and it's the holidays and we have a lot of family gathering. So I appreciate that very much, but we'll be back. And Jesse did put on here, you can go to your phone's app store and search for Gardener's Workshop Live Shop, and then go in and watch the replays. But I'm telling you, y'all, our live app is this. If you want to think of it this way, it's totally separate from our website. It's like our seasonal shop. It's like our little pop-up shop over here. You're going to find products in there that you're not going to ever see on our big website. We do all these special bundles. We do special offers. We bring in products to see, hey, we used to sell these. I wonder if, we should add them back to our line, and we'll see how they sell. So it's really, if you are, for seeds, tools, and our supplies, it's just a great way to. And what's really cool about our app that we cannot get our website to do is when I do a live show each week for an item, it attaches that little segment of video to that product in the app. So you can go to seeds and see what I said about that seed the last time I was live, or maybe even multiple times. I'm not sure how it does that. But the app has a lot of great features that we can't have on our website. Like our website has features that we can't get on our app. There is nothing perfect in this world, friends, and we have learned it more than anybody when it comes to technology. Hello there, another one of our students. I live in Canada. I have your book and struggle trying to figure out what USD plant hardiness zone I live in because we have different zone tables. Do you know the zones for Canada? You don't need to know your zones. And in fact, I'm working on a project right now where I'm not using zones because it's going to be an international deal. So what you need to do is to go to the USDA winter hardiness zone. Google, search engine that. USA hardiness zone map. And then stretch it big because it's so tiny you can barely read it. Look down on the bottom and see what the winter low temperature is for the zone that is same as yours. Meaning, if you know, and you should be able to know that information. If you can't, do a search engine with your zip code or whatever code you guys use to identify where you live in the search engine and say, what is my winter's average low temperature? And if it comes up and says 10 degrees or -10, then you can go to the USDA winter hardiness zone and stretch it big and read the definition of what the different zones are right there. And that should hook you up. So I hope that helps you, but that should fix your problem. Is the new Cool Flowers book coming out updated with new information? No, it is not. It is a reprint of the exact same book. Hello, Tara. Oh, there she is. She's one of our students. All right, y'all, we're wrapping it up here. Let's see, Anita. Hello from Northeastern Georgia Zone 8A7B. You are just the same as me, and she is currently in my class, and we're about to get a cold snap with temperatures down to the upper 20s and low 30s. What temperature should row covers be used? I have snap, stock, larkspur, feverfew, and many more. Which flowers require the most protection? I have the hoops in place and row covers ready. You are a good student. That's exactly what you should be. So here's how you always figure this out. I'm not going to answer you by the flower, but I'm going to say something about one of the flowers. Is if you are growing flowers that are winter hardy in your winter hardiness zone, they don't require protection to survive, but they surely benefit from it just from getting all beat up from the cold, crisp wind, right? But I typically don't put row covers up unless we're going down. I'm now saying 25 degrees, and that for several nights because it's an up and down situation. So upper 20s, low 30s, if they're planted and established, I probably would not do anything. However, I will tell you that stock, I don't plant stock in the fall. I plant it in very early spring. I do believe it's winter hardy. However, it is going to bloom in the middle of winter when you don't have netting up. So you need to put that on your radar that that's an experiment and that you're going to need to plant that again in very early spring, most likely. But good for you having hoops and row cover ready. That's exactly how cool flower growers learn to be. If you want a butt-kicking crop in spring, the highest demand flower season of the year, you are willing to take extraordinary measures to do whatever it takes to have a success. And I will tell you, it takes a couple of years, and I'm still learning. It takes several years maybe, but don't feel like you like you don't know what you're doing yet. We all feel that way. Thank you very much for the answer on succession planting. Very helpful. Good morning, everyone. Here's another good morning from Aaron. After you pull something out of the Bio 360, can you replant the same Bio 360? I think I just answered that. I bought the Cool Flower book on Amazon for Kindle. When will the hard copy be available? As soon as the container arrives, everybody will have Cool Flowers again. There's thousands and thousands of books in a container floating over here right now. But we have some airlifting to us via our publisher that'll be coming hopefully later November. But again, the people on our wait list is going to wipe that out, I suspect, unless they send us more than we actually ordered. So get on the wait list. And there's several links in this feed that you can actually do that. So Flower Freak says no more Clubhouse on Wednesdays. We paused Clubhouse on Wednesdays probably about 2 months ago, and the verdict is out on that for after the first of the year. But you can go listen to the replays over there, but we haven't been having conversations over there for a couple of months. Howdy from Texas. We'll miss seeing you on Saturday. Thanks you for all the great resources that we can learn from. And here's the other thing, friends. You're so welcome, Susan, first off. And as the wheel turns and business is business and things get busy, I am really trying to take the most advantage this winter of really stepping back and seeing how we can up our game on the resources and other things. And I just have to have some blank time, if y'all understand that, some downtime for actually that to happen. So just be ready for 2023. It's going to be a great one. And I appreciate you saying that. And we have no intention of stopping our connection with you guys. What temperature do you keep your room that you start your seeds in when on heat mat or under grow lights? Fran, it 100% depends on the season. When it's cool season, hardy annual seeds being started on the heat mat and under the grow light, the room is like 65 to 68 degrees. When it's warm season, tender annuals, that's more like 75 to 80 degrees in there. Good morning from Texas. Thank you for the information. Oh, you're so welcome. And I know that everybody is just, I know that y'all appreciate it, and that's what keeps us doing this. And the thing that you can do the most for us is to keep listening to our podcast, drop a review, share on Facebook with your friends and in groups that might be interested in our stuff. If you're watching me on YouTube, subscribe. All of those things make the platform show us to more people, which drives us to be able to create more content, which all cost money, right? And if you ever have the opportunity that you need seeds, tools, supplies, or an online course, please consider us. That's what drives this force and takes care of our staff. Patricia, just got my Cool Flowers book. I am in Canada, Zone 7B. I'm still harvesting flowers and haven't had a first frost yet. Cool Flowers will be a life-altering for me. Cool Flowers is life-altering for all of us. I thank you so much for saying that. And I wonder if you got your book. Mother Earth News had some, but I'm sure they're gone by now. But some of these little private shops had some, and people were sharing that. I don't have a question. Just wanted to say, after about 750 failed soil blocks, I got a full tray. Yes! With 100% success. Y'all, soil blocking, direct seeding, starting a flower farming business, whatever. So often, you just have to keep trying, even if you fail. You just got to keep after it because there's something missing. If other people are doing it, you know that you can do it. You just have to figure out the process. So that's totally awesome. All right, friends, I've got to go record a podcast or Jesse's going to cook my goose. And yesterday, so these are the kind of things that I need to be doing. We have grown a specialty cut flower pepper that's not readily available, and meaning it's just great in bouquets and for commercial use. And yesterday I stood over there for like 2 hours and cut the peppers off the plants so we can process them to save the seed. And that's the kind of stuff that, we don't do that routinely. So there's not a process for it. And who do you think needs to figure that out? Yours truly. So those are the kind of things I'm doing, exciting stuff. And I can't wait for spring of 2023 or, January of 2023. Look for our digital catalog. We'll be launching in December. Don't forget about my podcast. And we have lots of new seeds that'll be coming out. And you know that we have a grower now that is actually growing Texas celosia, which the plumes that are amazing. And we will have them in regular and jumbo packs. You need to go onto the app and get on the wait list because they're being delivered November 22nd and they have to be packaged. So they'll be ready probably in January, and you do not want to miss out on them. They're amazing. All right, friends, and sign up for our newsletter if you want to keep in the know. All right, friends. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. I'm grateful for each and every one of you, and thank you for joining me. And we'll be back. We're just having a little pause of eating turkey and opening presents, thinning seedlings, and that kind of fun stuff. All right, friends, till we meet again. Ciao.